going on right now, because that means that we can see what's actually happening. And that's one of the big important things, that we can actually see what's happening and we can see what's going on. Now, let's see what's going on. Let's jump right into it. So, boom, one, the Chinese, I guess, what is he, prime minister, or is he the president? Now, I guess he's the Chinese president. Xi Jinping was in California this week, and he was over there in California, and they cleaned up all of the streets of San Francisco just for him. Boom shaka. Wasn't that great? Wasn't that phenomenal? Everything, all the homeless, all of the trash, everything is gone. Funny thing about that was Governor Newsom got on the television and he said, hey, everything is great and fantastic. And people said, well, why did you kick all the homeless off the street? And why did you actually clear up the street when everything was looking in tatters and was looking like a third world country before President Xi got here? And he said, oh, well, this and this and that, but, I can't even lie. The fact is, I did clean up because Xi was coming, and I did clean up because Xi was coming, which to me, I didn't even know what to do with that, right? Like, I couldn't be upset with him. I'm kind of like, well done. You told the truth. You told the whole truth there, which is a lot less than we get from most politicians nowadays. I might not have liked what you had to say. I might not have liked what was going on, but it was the truth. 100% unadulterated truth. And is that common anymore? Is it common for us to get the unadulterated truth from any elected officials anymore? I think right now, with what we've got going on, we've got far too many politicians that do not actually care to tell you the truth. And that's probably part of the hardest thing that we have to experience, because we can't tell if anything is going on and if anything is going right. And we can't tell if we can believe the news media. We can't tell if we can believe any of the things that are coming out of the mouths of the people who are actually talking, because, well, this is what we've got. And I'm honestly, personally, can I be personal for a second? Personally, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm tired of our elected officials lying to us. I'm tired of everybody telling us everything is okay. I'm tired of everybody saying what they think that you want them to hear. I'm super tired. And it's bothering me, and it's kind of pissing me off. I mean, do I get the right as an American citizen to be upset anymore? Can I be upset anymore? Is it legal to be upset anymore? Do we even know? Because right now it seems like when you start to speak up, they'll do whatever they can do to get rid of you. And that's a serious problem. They shouldn't be getting rid of you for speaking on what you believe. They should be making it so that you can actually speak up and speak freely. It's very, very important that we maintain our freedom of speech. Because if we do not, all is lost. And I want to encourage you guys. All hope is not lost right now. We can actually stand up and push back against the overreach that government is expanding. So right now, I'll give you a great example of governments lying and manipulating their people. New York State, I live in the great state of New York, and if you're listening to this, you're probably in the state of New York. If you're not, and you're listening to us digitally, or you're listening to us online streaming somewhere, the fact of the matter is, in New York State, the appellate court just overturned a verdict that came out last year that prevented quarantine camps. Really, they weren't even quarantine camps, they were internment camps. Let's be very clear about what they were. The logic was very, very unreal around the whole situation with it. The wording was very vacant. I don't even know the word to say. Like, vacant is as close as possible, but it was absent. There was no, like, I'll give you an example. This all came from the bill for a state assembly, A416. And basically the bill, and I'm summarizing, but this is almost exactly what it said. Basically, the bill said this. It says, if you may have possibly come in contact with somebody who may possibly be considered to be a threat to public health, that they can then intern you, take you or your child out of your house, lock you up for an undisclosed amount of time, and then they would just make it as though, well, you don't need to be released. They don't have to give you, and this is what it said, they don't have to give you a lawyer or anything. And they said that, well, if they thought about it and they wanted to, they could give you a lawyer within 10 days. So that's a really, really big thing. I'm trying to make sure the sound and everything is on here good, because I'm not sure if you guys can hear me very well. Yes. Okay. So anyway, with what's going on, I think that that is a problem, because if they want to give you a lawyer, possibly they can give you a lawyer in 10 days. I don't think I like that idea. I don't think I like that concept at all. I get very concerned when the government just seems to go off and about and do whatever they want to. When they say that they can snatch any liberties or freedoms away from you. Now, here's the crazy thing about the law with 8416. It basically said that they don't even have to prove that you are sick. They just need to have reasonable suspicion that you came in contact with somebody that could be considered a threat to public health. Now, can we be clear that that wording, a threat to public health, does not mean that they're necessarily infected with a communicable disease? Can we talk about that for a second? Can we honestly have that real conversation? No, of course not. So they weren't able to get that bill going. That bill we were able to thankfully fight against and get that bill pulled. But then after that, Kathy Hochul, the high priestess of New York, decided that she was going to force it through the health and human service regulations, health regulations. And the problem with that is that completely circumvents the state legislature, which any laws that are being pushed are supposed to go through the legislature. The health regulations themselves for the health department, they don't have the legal authority to put in such regulations, and stuff like that pertaining to the actual citizens is supposed to go through the state legislature. So basically, the high priestess was circumventing all of what how the legislature is actually supposed to perform and act. So for me, that was a very, 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 very concerning part of what was going on. When they pulled it and they put it in health regulations, we had a chance to actually say, hey, we should fight this again. And one of the greatest people that I have met in my life, Bobby Ann Cox, a lawyer, stood up and said, hey, this is wrong. This should not happen like this. This is not right. And thankfully, we had a couple of our representatives, Chris T, Assemblyman George Grillo, and House of Representatives Mike Lawler, believe it or not. Believe that one or not. You know, that was very nice. And there was a citizens group. I forget the name of it, so please forgive me for not remembering off the top of my head. There was a citizen group that was also a part of that lawsuit as well. And they all sued the state to get it taken, to get rid of that regulation under the grounds that it was unconstitutional and basically usurped the powers of the legislature. And not only that, it also basically didn't make any sense, really, because we already have health regulations in relation to those types of situations. If somebody is in contact with a communicable disease or whatever. And the craziest thing about the whole health regulations that were put in there, many of the diseases that were on there that were listed were not even communicable diseases. Now, that should scare and terrify anyone. My biggest concern is that they can hold anybody under those regulations for any undisclosed period of time. It doesn't matter, a week, a month, a year, indefinitely. It doesn't matter, forever and ever. You know, it's really crazy. That is a problem. That isn't how our country is supposed to work. That's not how our state is supposed to work. But what happened with Governor Kathy Hochul? She said, oh, it's not a big deal. It's perfectly fine. What did Letitia James say? who's our attorney general. She said, oh, she's the one fighting the case with her office. She's like, oh, no, this is perfectly fine, but it's not. It's not perfectly fine. And we're not being perfectly honest with our people. We're not being perfectly honest with Americans. We're not being perfectly honest with New Yorkers when it comes to this stuff. And we really, really should be. We deserve actual representation in government. And we're not getting it. That's a serious problem. These are supposed to be our elected officials, and they're doing us dirty. They're doing us raw, and they're doing us wrong. And we deserve better as Americans and as New Yorkers. Do you know how much taxes we pay in New York? And they're like, oh, well, we're going to lock you up so you can't go to work, even if you don't necessarily have what we said that you didn't necessarily have. What kind of malarkey is that? But really what the scary part was is that not only can they hold you indefinitely, during the oral arguments for the appellate court previously, was it the appellate court or was that the case for it doesn't matter. For the court case, the argument came up, said, well, one of the judges asked, this was the first case before the appeal. The judge asked, they said, well, what if somebody wanted to get out of the quarantine? What happens if the family's in quarantine? How do they get out? And the attorney general's office said, well, they could hire a lawyer and sue us. They could hire a lawyer and sue you. What type of nonsense is that? And how are they going to hire a lawyer and sue you if they don't have access to their bank account, if they don't have access to their job to be paid, if they don't have access to any of that? And now they're probably losing their job, losing their home, losing their credit, losing their everything, and everything that it takes for them to live. That's really sad and bad. And I just think that that's very problematic when we go on and we move forward this way. Now, again, this goes back to government lying, right? Government misleading and government doing things behind your back. Like at least Newsom in California had the balls to say, yeah, I did it. I did it the same way he had to party with all of the people during COVID. He's like, oh yeah, I did it. He's like, I don't even know what to do with that, right? Like he's very clearly a terrible person, but sometimes he's dreadfully honest, which is scary because you know exactly who he is, but also kind of refreshing. But that's terrifying because that just shows you how little the rest of our government is actually honest with us. And that brings us into another thing where the government will control more and more and gain more power and snatch it away from the people. We all know right now that the government spending is out of control, that the debt for the nation is more than $130,000 per person. I believe it's like 110, 120, something like that. But then when you add in all of the actual property and stuff that we have that we could use to actually pay off the debt, there's still unresolved debt after that. So it's even more money. It's crazy. But we've got all this money that we owe as a nation. And basically what's happening is we're still sending money overseas. Can somebody make that make sense to me? Can somebody make that make sense to me? We've got hungry and starving people on almost every corner. And maybe I'm being a little, it's using a little hyperbole there, but it's not really. If you live in Rochester, especially, you can see this everywhere you go. And it's a problem. Are we addressing that issue? Absolutely not. Are we addressing the issue that we need more funding for things like, actual stuff that matters? Like, why do we spend so much money on sending things across the seas when we have a terrible issue with inflation right here at home? And the more money that we send overseas is another 10 cents on your gas bill. It's another, when you go fill up your truck, it's another 10% on your grocery bill. It's another, because what's happening is inflation is the silent tax on the poor and on the working class. Basically what it is it's a tax that really is felt by you because your dollar is worth less on spending power. So the more that the money printers go burr at the treasury, the more that they go burr, the less money that you have in your pocket. even though it's the same amount, right? But now your value is less. And that's very extremely concerning. And we should look at that. I was looking at a thing online earlier. It was saying that the price of everything of a general home cooked meal for Thanksgiving has gone up from about $50 in 2019 to $75 in to excuse me. Oh, I said that wrong. To $112 in 2023. That's crazy to me. I don't even know how to reconcile that. I don't even know how to reconcile for Thanksgiving. I don't know how to reconcile. I don't know how to reconcile that. And you'll be like, well, Marcus, I've spent more money on that before. Of course, this is just an average if you calculate the stuff together on individual prices, averages, and stuff. But it's concerning. The way in the direction that our country is going, are we going in the right direction? Who knows? Are we going in the wrong direction? It definitely looks that way. It definitely looks that way. So my question to you out there is, what do you see as the issue? Where do you see the problems in our society? And how can we improve that, right? Because we've got to bridge this divide that's going on. Because the majority of the issues that we're seeing on the right side, left side, or in the middle are all the same issues, right? Like, we don't want people to be homeless outside, right? How do we come together and work to prevent homelessness, right? We might have different ideas on different things and different ways to get there, but we all think that's something that needs to be solved. Really, for me, it's more so let's prevent it from happening to begin with than actually solving it, and then we won't have a problem to solve once we do that. But I mean, that just kind of makes sense and is reasonable. And when you give out reasonable ideas and conceptualizations, people don't want to listen because, oh my goodness, we can give away people free stuff, you know? We can just give a man fish when you need to teach him how to fish. And that's the old adage, you guys know. You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. So we've got many issues with our economy, largely that come from government spending and the devaluation of the American dollar. But we can't talk about that. We've got issues with public safety, people running into stores, stealing everything out of the way, and everything like that. And if you live in Rochester, we have the Police Accountability Board. So the Police Accountability Board, in theory, was a board that is supposed to oversee a board of citizens, and I use that term loosely, citizens, that use that have oversight over the police and discipline and stuff like that. So that whole thing was a debacle from day A1. If you live in Rochester, I'm not going to get into it too deep, but I will cover it lightly for people who aren't from Rochester and don't know. Basically, back during the COVID time and George Floyd and the BLM nonsense that was going on, these crazy fools decided that they wanted to make it so that the police were the bad guys and everything. The police were at fault for everything, and they wanted to get rid of the police. They were screaming, defund the police and Acapulco, all kinds of bad. And it's insane, right? Because when you get rid of the police, what communities suffer the most? The impoverished, the Black communities, and the working class communities. All of the people that Democrats say that they stand up for, but very clearly, there is something amiss between the policies and the people that they're working on. They say good stuff, but then you look at the impact of the policy and who does it hurt? And it hurts the same people that they say that it was supposed to help. So somebody make it make sense to me. And I shouldn't say people as individuals, I should say community, because it's very clear that a lot of the policies that many Democrat politicians, and this isn't all of them, but this is many, seem to be very what would you call it? Pro-criminal. They definitely aren't pro-citizen. They definitely aren't pro-law-abiding citizen. They definitely aren't pro-you, pro-me, you know? We just want to live, be left alone by the government, and go on about our business to work and do what we need to do to get done to provide for ourselves in life legally. But if you get chased down and your car gets jacked, you can't even defend yourself because then you're the bad guy and you'll go to jail. So these crazy politicians, and I'm going to put it largely on the people on city council in Rochester, pushed for, and other people in the community that don't live in the communities that are high crime communities, or the criminals themselves promoted the police accountability board. Ridiculous. So they promoted this. They put it on a ballot to get a vote on it after they tried to make it sound all nice and sweet when it wasn't. Okay, and basically it got into play, and basically with, if you guys don't know, aren't familiar with Rochester, what happened during Summer of Love, right? When they were destroying all of the buildings, burning stuff down, destroying all the stores and everything in black and brown and impoverished communities and working class communities. They didn't mess with the people in the nice neighborhoods. They didn't mess with them. Why didn't they mess with them? Right? You know, you're screaming, oh, injustice, inequality, equity, all this nonsense. But you left the nice places alone. You destroyed the places that were already struggling inside. But out of that, guys, many of the people on city council right now, currently, okay, three of them in particular, okay, Stanley Martin, Mary Lupian, and Kim Smith all pushed for this insanity. Okay, matter of fact, the latter of the two pushed for it in their election. That's how they got elected. Kim Smith and Stanley Martin. I should have said before. Anyway, but it doesn't matter. There were other ones on the board for city council that also said, hey, this is great. Let's do it because the people want it and we want to be left alone. And it sounds good for campaign. I can't stand politicians like that. That's raw and that's wrong. It's a problem. And now we have a problem in our community where we can barely get anybody to want to be police officers. God bless all police officers out there right now doing the job and actually serving. Because, I mean, it's a rough job. But aside from being a rough job, we also have the issue where it's a rough job and it's a problem when you're actually trying to do your job and they are telling you, we hate you, we don't like you, we don't want you to do your job, blah, 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 blah. You guys, so anyway, I don't want to get into it because I got some personal feelings about it because of crime, I've been affected by it personally, business, my life, and stuff like that. And you know, like I said before, you can't even deal with these people the way that they deserve to be dealt with, these criminals, because we're in a state that's so pro-criminal. But the Police Accountability Board had a lawsuit against them. Well, they filed a lawsuit saying they should to um, control the police and do whatever they want, discipline, whatever. That was challenged. That was challenged, and it ended up in appeals court. And I don't remember who or what was the lead of the case, but basically it got struck down today, and it said that they don't have any enforcement of anything to do with the police. That they don't. It's not legal. So basically, they're useless. And did I tell you that they cut the police budget $5 million to give to these fools who haven't done anything, and they've been active for what, 3 years now? What year was it? It's 2020. COVID was 2019, right? COVID-19, right? That's 20, so 22. So they've been in there for almost 3 years with all this money that they've been spending recklessly, raw. And if you guys know anything about it, if you don't, so these people on the Police Accountability Board have gotten in trouble for touching each other's num-yums and for just basically doing nothing. And the first part wasn't a joke. That really happened more than once, which is beyond insane. And it's a serious issue, and it shows that this is what happens when you hire a whole bunch of people for a job that's supposed to be for oversight. But the job that you're hiring the people for is you're hiring them to have oversight of the police, but they're all hate the police, anti-police, pro-criminal logic behind people. And these people are ostensibly, what I would say, not the best people for the job because of where their personal standards and thoughts and feelings and stated politics lie. None of them worked for the police before. None of them have a military background. None of them have dealt with anything like how one would have to service the community being a police on patrol or anything like that. So how do they even have the conceptualization that they should be able to have oversight if they don't even know how to be police? Maybe they should have to go through the whole police training to begin with and actually pass the exam. Maybe they should have to take the detective's exam. And, I don't know what to say is, but the fact of the matter is these are the wrong people. They all have a history of hating the police, and it's really broad, really, really bad. So for me, I think that that's been one of the biggest issues with them, that they're ineffective. And we could have spent that money on outreach for kids and let the children actually have stuff to do after school. Again, something that everybody agrees on, that we should have after school programs for the youth. But the question is where are they? We used to have more after school programs when I was in high school and when I was in elementary school, and now we don't really have any. So that's a very important question. Where is everything right now? Is everything working okay? Because it doesn't look like it, and it doesn't look like the government is funding things in the way that we need them to actually fund them, which is very, very, very scary, because it shows that your tax money is something they don't have any respect for. And I'd just like to remind you that you're listening to WRFZ, Radio Free Rochester, 106.3 FM. So, look, me, I got alarms and stuff going off so I can remember what time when I should say anything. That's funny. Okay. Anyway, you guys, so as we continue down this path and this journey together, as we go on this conversation today, I'd just like to talk about those couple things right now. What we have seen from between California and New York is a complete disrespect for American citizens, for their state citizens. That's why California and New York have the largest attrition, that's people moving out or people running away, of any state. Everybody's moving out. Everybody's going away because everybody's sick and tired of this. So the question is, what can you do as an individual to actually stand up and take action, right? Because if you know me, I always say stand up, speak up, and don't shut up. Take action. It's very important. So the question is, what do we do? What do we do? Well, we had an election the other day, and only, I think it was about 20-something% of the people came out to vote, which was terrible. But then I looked at the numbers for New York City, and only about 20% of the people in New York City came out to vote. So I'm like, I guess only like 20% of the whole state came out to vote for New York City. And this is a problem because all of these issues were local elections, pretty much, right? So local elections, and these are the jobs that were for like county ledge, town or town supervisor, which were races that really impact people in the community because it impacts them directly. These are the people who make your actual life, the quality of life, and everything that's going on. It makes it change. They are the ones who can really effectuate change. And people will say, "Oh, well, if you don't go out and vote, he'll say, oh, well, you have to hold people accountable when they are on the ballot. You got to go vote." Yes, you do, 100%. But as we saw, a lot of people are so fed up with what's going on, they didn't vote. So what my encouragement is to people is find out who your elected officials are. Do you know who your state assembly person is? Do you know who your state legislature person is? Do you know who your town council or city council person is? These are the things that we have to really start to educate ourselves on, because if we don't know locally who the important people are that are in our political orbit locally, it'll be a problem. And they should know you. They should know you. Because if you really care, they should know you. Don't tell me you care and your elected official doesn't know who you are. Don't tell me that, because that's a bunch of malarkey. Okay? Don't sell me that story. So my encouragement to you is find out who all your local elected officials are. Depending, if you're in New York State, you can go right on the Board of Election for your county and you can find out, or you can go to the state Board of Elections, and you can find out there. If you're in another state, I'm sure you can find on the website for the state for the Board of Elections. Okay. But we've got to start getting people more galvanized and more engaged. If we don't get them more engaged, nothing will change. But it's not just when it's time to vote. Listen to me clearly. It's not just when it's time to vote. It's when they are in office. It's when they're in office. That is the most impactful time that you can actually get something done, is when elected officials are in office. Can we talk about how we started off this whole conversation saying that the elected officials are the ones who are supposed to serve you and they're only serving their own best interests? You understand what I'm saying? They're supposed to serve you. So when they're in office and they're not serving you, or you have a specific issue in relation to their policy or their specific job level, okay? Let's say it's the potholes. So who's in charge of the potholes? I don't know. It depends on where you live, right? If you're in the middle of a rural area, it could either be the town or it could be the county. It depends on what the road is. If you live in the city, it's probably city council, and it's probably got something to do with the Department of I can't even remember the department. That's how bad it is. But the fact of the matter is that they fill in all these potholes, and somehow all the same potholes keep coming back. Why do all the same potholes keep coming back? That seems like we should have some advanced technology by now, able to fix them without them coming back all the time. Because somehow we're still using tar technology, which is the same type of technology that the caveman had. So something's not right and something's not adding up, especially here in New York State where we've got a history of cold weather and water expansion because of the cold and freeze fracture, I believe they call it. But we've got a history of that. You mean nobody? We got all these great institutes, U of R, RIT, all these SUNY colleges, Brockport, and all the rest. Even MCC is pretty good. It's one of the top rated community colleges in the nation. So, I mean, we got all these smart people over here, and then Cornell's not too far away, and we got all these other places. And you mean nobody up here came up with a solution for the continued potholes? Nobody? Nobody. All these geniuses. Nobody? Come on, stop playing in my face. It means that people just like to do the basic and bare minimums to go along to get along because people won't hold them accountable. And this again goes back to us holding them accountable. We have to hold them accountable. If this is something as small as potholes, bro, and they can't get the potholes fixed right, and the potholes keep coming back, that goes to show you how everything else is with all of their policies. Everything with their policies is back. Everything with their policies is the bare minimum. You know, and they're like, oh, well, we need to retexturize the road every 10, 15. They say we know their roads don't last 10 years, especially if you live in the city. Now, I don't know. If you live in the suburbs, maybe it lasts 10 years. I don't know. But in the city, it doesn't. Okay? You're lucky if it lasts two years. Jeez. And that doesn't include the potholes that come back every springtime. Okay, they pop up faster than the weeds pop up. And that's a real live issue that we need to end getting addressed. So for me, it's a large concern about policy and actual concern from our officials. But it's going to be up to you to drive that. It's going to be up to me to drive that. We've got to come together and we've got to start to unite around the issues that we see that are very serious problems. You look at some people like the Greenies. The Greenies all unite around climate change, even though nobody knows what climate change is anymore, right? Like it was global warming. I thought it was global. Yeah, I was told it was global. I mean, you know, everything's heating up. We're all going to die because it's heating up. Now it's, oh, well, stuff's cooling down. What's cooling down? How can cooling down be global warming? So now you're telling me that the cooling down of stuff is climate change too? How does that even work? How does that work? How does it work? And then even heating up is not really that much hotter. And then you're telling me that it's going to heat up. It's going to heat up 2 degrees Celsius, of which I don't even know what Celsius is because I'm American. I know what Celsius is, but you guys get what I'm saying. So it's going to heat up 2 degrees Celsius. It's already up 1.5 degrees Celsius. So basically what you're telling me is that nothing can be done about it anyway, so why even bother, right? But the fact of the matter is they galvanize people around these concepts, right? Even though nobody really knows what the hell they're doing, it changes every 5 seconds. But they galvanize people to action around these concepts, and they push all of this craziness like ESG and all of this stuff to make it sound like they're doing something better. What are they calling it now? Because they stopped using the term ESG. Now it's oh my goodness, what is it? Oh my God, I can't remember right now. That guy from Larry Fink from BlackRock changed the term because he was like, oh, people are looking bad down on ESG, so now we have to change the term. And I'm at a loss right now for what the new term is for ESG. So while I continue on, I'm going to try to look it up at the same time and see what happens. I don't even know if I can. I don't have direct access to the internet right now. But anyway, we'll figure it out. So every now and then, basically, we get these groups that galvanize around something specifically. Like we've got the crazy people stop oil that go and super glue their hands to the ground, so they throw paint on hundreds of years old paintings because they want that done. And I'm not telling you that craziness because that's insane, and all of those people should be locked up, right? Because it's the methods that we use that are the problem. And they're like, oh well, we're gonna disrupt your life. I don't know you, man. I don't know you. I don't owe you. Stop blocking the traffic. That's a problem. Okay, you're trying to make what your concern is a problem for everybody else when it's not, bro. That's how people end up not breathing anymore because somebody takes your breath away permanently because you're messing with their livelihood, right? So the people need to be careful about doing stuff like that. That's why when I talk about doing stuff and I talk about engagement, things like that, I want you to do it in a real, meaningful way, which is not only respectful but minimally, what's it? Minimally invasive, right? Like I want things done right and in order. I encourage you to call your elected official. I encourage you to write elected official. I encourage you to email your elected officials. I encourage you to go set meetings with your elected officials. You know, reasonable, tangible things. And if something needs to go on from there, then we need to take the next step up from there. But before you even do that, you know, the next step, after you make the calls, send the emails and whatever, find out what page your person is on that's representing you. You ask them, well, if I'm concerned about this, what do you suggest that I do, right? Where can I go? And then you find out that it really lets you know where their head is, um, and see what's going on. And again, you're listening to WRFZ 106.3 FM, Rochester Free Radio. But it goes on. After they tell you, you get to know more about it. And if they really, right? Because the issue with a lot of politicians is they're scared and they're concerned. They don't know what can be done at their capacity because they want to be voted back into office. And if they upset, excuse me, if they upset the rest of the party somewhere, then maybe they won't be able to get any more funding anymore. Because at the end of the day, with most politicians, this really ends up going back down to their funding, which is a whole other problem. We have to talk about that. It's just they need accountability. They really, really do. But let's talk about some other stuff because there is just so much stuff to talk about. Oh boy, oh boy. What a miracle that we're almost to 2024. Can you believe it? 2024 is right around the corner. We're only about, well, a month and a half away from a whole new year. What do you have planned? Have you come up with an idea of what you can put in to your community to actually start engaging in local politics? I'm just talking about calls, maybe helping neighbors to voting sites, maybe becoming an election inspector. Something like that would be good. A good start to your civic duty and your civic engagement to help improve our country, which we can very much so see seems to be slinking down into the background. But that doesn't mean that all faith and hope should be lost because there are many wins across the country starting to go on. I know a lot of you guys didn't come out because you felt like your vote didn't count. Well, I want to let you know that your vote does count. And don't listen to anybody that tells you that your vote doesn't count because you matter. And you matter to me at least. Now, I can't talk for everybody else, and I can't talk for all politicians, and I can't talk for all human beings, but I promise you that you matter to me. And one thing that's more important than anything for us to remember is that we have a civic duty to engage in government. But if we see something like gas prices are a problem, we need to figure it out. We'll say, oh, well, the politicians need to figure that out for us. No, 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 they don't. They represent our will, right? And most of them don't have any specialties specifically for any particular region or anything as far as academia or anything like that. So we have to tell them and present them with the solutions. And largely, people don't present them with the solutions that they would like to see that are thought out, that are sussed out, or in any way implementable. And that's why stuff ends up not done. A large portion of things that I see people actually putting forth are just things that couldn't even get done if they wanted to. But we've got a new chance because we got a new year coming up. And in January, all of these people who just got elected are going to get into their new seats or their old seats or their repeat seats. And then they'll be able to start working. But you're going to have. In the meantime, we're about to have Thanksgiving later this week. And all the food is skyrocketing. Right? All the heating costs, they just raised the heating costs. If you're in New York State, they just raised the cost of heating and electric again. Locally, we've got these people that are these American socialists or neo-Marxists, whatever you want to call them. And they call themselves Metro Justice. Now, I've talked to people there before, and some of the people who've been involved with the group for a long time, and they're like, we're not socialists. We're not communists. I'm like, but these people are in your group, and they're clearly saying socialist and communist stuff. And they're like, oh, well, that doesn't represent all of us. Well, now it kind of does because those are the people that are the representatives and the most active in your group, and everybody else is starting to fall off. So these people here, they've got this campaign that's called Rochester for Energy Democracy. And it's what they're trying to push is turning our local energy provider into a public utility, allegedly, but they don't want to turn it into a public utility. They want to turn it into a private nonprofit, which they run themselves. And to me, that's wrong. Okay, I don't really want the government to take over any private entity. That's a very concerning trend for me to begin with. Just because you don't like the way that they're performing, I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's just, and I don't. And honestly, it's not legal. But nationalization, or I don't even know what you call it. Statenization. We're making up words. Add that to the dictionary. Statenization of a private entity is a communist socialist ideal that happens in communist socialist countries. And then we see it happens in stuff called poop because the governments generally don't run stuff too terribly well. And people will say, well, Marcus, that's because the government interferes, the American government interferes in other people's stuff. No, that's not true. That's not true. Because we've been nice to China. China's communist, okay, but their whole economy is collapsing because, again, poor policy. And it's all the policy related back to communism. And you can't tell me that there's one socialist or communist nation that has been very successful. You'll say, oh, well, this and oh, well, that. Yeah, but what about these countries that America has? But I digress. Anyway, they're trying to push for a public utility. You may have heard it. You may have. Now, for years, I'd say probably 2017 started, I supported RG being a public utility because I wasn't so fond for many reasons, but we'll just go for the fact that I supported RG being a public utility. But these new people that they're calling themselves Metro Justice and the Rochester for Energy Democracy campaign, which socialist, communist nonsense, trash, garbage. Okay, and somebody might feel some type of way. I end on that. I stand on that, and I tell them that all the time, publicly. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with your stances, and I do not agree with the policies and the promotions that you are pushing because they're ill. Let me rephrase. They are purposefully um, detrimental to the general populace for their own self interest and self aggrandizement, lifting themselves up and filling their own pockets. It's a very small, exclusive group that is the ones that are in charge of this. And it's only a couple of people, and they're using this for themselves. It's not about the people. They don't care about people. But the crazy thing is that this goes back to the same thing with the government. The government doesn't really care about you. They don't care about you. If they did, they'd be doing what was right and what was just all the time, and they wouldn't be on the TV arguing with this person or arguing with that person, arguing with the other party or arguing with this party. And they'd be like, hey, let me hear what you got to say, and let's see how we can work together to get something done today. It's that simple. Things aren't complicated like they try to make it out. Like there's so much differences between the Democrats and the Republicans. There's not. On the Democrat side, you got Democrats, which are almost extinct, and then you've got the whole left, which is the whole left, right? The leftists, the progressives, the radical left, the socialists, the communists. All of them have taken over the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party is nowhere to be found. You know, if you get a real actual Democrat, like it's few and far between. You know, which they're out there. I know some of them. You know, but things have gone too far because people are not being honest with themselves, with each other, and they're consistently trying to manipulate you as a populace. We shouldn't have to go through this. We shouldn't have to deal with this. And we should be standing up against this. You know, we're sending so much foreign money. We're sending so much money to foreign countries right now. You know, you got Israel and you got Palestine over there fighting. And what did Joe Biden do the other day? Release $10 billion to Iran, our enemy, our stated enemy. What happened last week? We had China coming in our country with all types of, with a military parade, with a Marine holding up the Chinese flag, an American Marine holding up a Chinese flag. What type of insanity is this that we're living through? With the streets lined with Chinese flags, like Xi just came and conquered San Francisco. Are we serious with ourselves? Is this what's really going on? Do these people really care about us? Nonsense, you guys. Nonsense. They care about themselves. They care about themselves. They care about their own bank account. Biden cares about his own family and everything like that. I can't be mad at him. I understand that. But it's the corrupt nature of him as being an elected public official that's the problem, right? Like, I don't expect Larry Fink to give a think or care about anybody because he's private equity, right? So he cares about himself. He's supposed to care about his shareholders, but that's a whole separate conversation. He's got a long-term plan to completely stabilize the American government and put more money and more power and more property in his pocket and in his company's portfolio than there is in the rest of the world. Honestly, it's crazy because right now I believe they've got something like $14 trillion in cash reserves, which makes them one of the biggest economies in the freaking world as far as countries go. And they're not even a country, they're like a private equity firm. Like, what in the world is really going on? And then you'll say, oh, well, Marcus, that's, what do they say? What's it? Eat the rich, right? That's the leftist kind of saying, and tax the rich out of existence. But they're not going to pay taxes. Only people who are going to pay taxes are you and the regular working class people and those in poverty because they just hired 80,000, 87,000 new IRS workers. Well, they didn't hire them, but they allocated the money to the side for it. And we'll see what happens there. But in other news, talk about the government just trying to exact more control over people. We've also got the fact that the government has these kill switches that are going to be put inside cars, which I've been warning about this. I don't know why people haven't been listening. Don't tell somebody something so often. But I've been warning about this from the beginning. In the infrastructure bill, Biden's great infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which wasn't bipartisan at all, but that's a whole other conversation. but it was in there, and it said that by 2026, all the cars will have breathalyzers, so that they can automatically be shut down or refuse to start if somebody blows whatever it is that they want this week. And here's the thing: why should the government have control, especially the federal government, the federal government, not your local, your federal government, not your city council, your federal government? The people in Washington who can barely do anything right, who are always bickering and fussing and all go to the same parties and are real always part of the same clique. And they don't give a care about you or me because they're all part of this elite group, you know? And it's what do people call it? The uniparty? It's basically what it is. It's basically what it is, you know. There's so much division in our country, but there's really only one party running the whole government, and that's elites. Period. End of story. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, all of them. They're all married into each other's family. Go look it up. They all go have the same bankers and stuff. It's crazy. They all go to the same colleges and their kids go to the same places. It's insane. They're all intertwined. You're not equal like them. They're more equal than you are. And that's what you have to realize. And the second that you realize that that's how they think, then we can start to make a difference and start to elect people and start to fight for people to get elected that actually care about you as individuals. But back to the car kill switch. So there are a couple of people, specifically Tom Massey, who's one of the representatives in the House of Representatives, who actually tried to push back against this on the floor the other day. I mean, I think it's a little late. I think it should have been done before, but where the heck is Kevin McCarthy trying to do any of that? Yeah, I'm talking about you, Kevin. Where were you on that? Where's Rona McDaniels on this? Yeah, I'm talking about you, Rona. And Rona is Mitt Romney's niece, and Mitt Romney is a piece of, well, he's not a piece of pizza. Anyway, but it's interesting, and I know maybe we've gone a little too much into caring about the citizens on this show today. But am I not a citizen? Are you not a citizen? Do we not all deserve to be represented? They used to have a saying, no taxation without representation. And right now, I don't feel that I have any representation at all. I don't feel like I have representation on the city level. I don't feel like I have representation on the in the mayor's office. I don't feel like I have representation in my county. Definitely don't have representation for my county ledge. I don't feel like I have representation on the comptroller, the attorney general, the governor, the lieutenant governor. None of those people represent. I don't feel like I got representation on the federal level either. Who's my federal? What I got Joe Morelli and Chuck Schumer. I don't feel like either of them represent me. No offense to them as individuals. It's all about their policies. I don't feel like I'm represented. So why do I have to ever pay taxes? I should never ever pay taxes. I deserve a refund. And I know some of you guys are going to be laughing, but the fact of the matter is that I make light of it because it's so serious. And if you're too serious about how serious it really is, it can make you depressed. And I know a lot of you out there are feeling depressed. And I'd like to give a shout out to all men right now, being that yesterday, I believe it was yesterday was Men's Day or whatever it was, which was interesting to me. I didn't even know that was a thing. But this month is Men's Health Awareness Month. So I'd like to give a shout out to men because I know that men don't have anybody to talk to. I know that they can't share anything with their family or significant others, and I know that they are not able to share anything with even other men, and that a lot of times they have to keep it inside. So shout out to you for being so strong, brothers. I really appreciate you. Stay strong. I know you might be suffering in silence, but we recognize your struggle and we recognize what's ongoing and the fact that we honestly don't have any spaces to talk about any of the issues for men. Appreciate you. Stay strong. Focus on your mental health. Focus on your physical health. And if you need a checkup, maybe get a checkup, even though you guys know I'm not big on the industrial complex. But make sure if you got some aches and pains, you go check that out. Or just tough it out like a man, because it's what men do. But eat healthy, drink water. Always drink water. I don't have any water by me, so that's I know I had a bottle for a second. I'm the only one. Drink water, stay hydrated. That's an important thing. Um, we've got, and I don't want to like get Debbie down because like it's winter time. Thanksgiving is coming up. A lot of people feel alone and they feel hopeless, and it shows from this last election cycle. But I want to make sure that I'm in, and I want to encourage you, no matter what you've gone through in life, no matter where you are in life, you can still move forward. Because someday, at some point, you won't be here anymore. You'll cease to exist, right? Like that light will be snuffed out, that candle will be blown out. It'll be the end of your journey. You'll get to the end of the line. But in the meantime, don't let the world get you. Don't let what's going on get you. Because it can be tough. It can be a burden. We talk about stuff on this show today, and many of the things we talked about, you might be like, oh man, what can I really do about it? I gave you some solutions. I did give you some solutions. I hope you take those solutions and take action. Um, but how can I, one person, make a difference? Let me tell you this. Every single person matters. You matter. You are important. Okay. And I don't care if anybody else says that you're not important. You're at least important to me. So I want you to have as much faith in yourself as I have. You can make a difference. But to make a difference, you have to be the difference that you want to see. I had a conversation with somebody last night, and I realized something. And I'm a Christian, so and I do talk about my faith openly, and I'm unabashedly Christian. I stand for the teachings of Jesus and our Lord God. But somebody told me, and we were having this conversation, and like, yeah, you know, you really are considerate of other people. You really actually engage with people, even if you disagree with them, and you really do your best to treat people the way that you want to be treated. Now, we weren't having a religious conversation. It had nothing to do with religion at all. But really, that touched my heart. And this morning I was thinking about it. And it made me think, I was like, wow, you know, I guess I'm doing all right as a Christian. I'm doing all right as a human being, you know? Like I'm doing all right. I'm treating others the way they want to be treated. What is that? Don't get me to try to quote scripture. Maybe Mark 17:20 or 17:22. Somewhere in there. It's in there. It's in Mark. It's in there somewhere. It's basically what people consider the golden rule. Do unto others as you have, right? And I think that we need more of that in society. But we've become so divided that it's gotten way too serious. We can't even have real conversations. What'll happen is somebody will challenge your standpoint, your thoughts on something, on an issue. They'll say, "Oh, well, I don't think that's right. This is right." Da, 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 da. And then you might have to actually reconsider the way that you think. But nobody wants to reconsider the way that they think and their common conceptions because that would hurt them as an individual and might mean that they have to reconsider their life. And who wants to do that? Who wants to do that? Well, maybe more of us need to do. Maybe we really need to start looking at the other side of the thought process that's different from us. Maybe we can learn from them at least. I look at it like this. I might not agree with you, but I could learn something from it. I could at least learn why you believe what you believe to be true. And that means that if you believe that to be true for that reason, it's a possibility that somebody else believes that to be true for that reason, which means that I might engage or interact with a person that has the same thought process as you in the future. And now, because of my interaction with you, I've learned how I can better interact with this person. But that only comes from actually opening your ears and listening. This is something that happens on both sides of the political strata, Democrat or Republican. Somebody says something and you don't like it, you automatically shut off or shut down. I'll give you a great example. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, just recently released some more January 6th footage. Now, some of you might think that January 6th was an insurrection. Some of you might think that January 6th was a game against the public American people by the feds. Some of you might think it was a clandestine operation that was executed by the Democrats or by the elites. Some of you might think that it wasn't really anything at all. It was a nothing burger, and people in politics and political spaces just used it for their own ability to consolidate more power. Well, here's a fact. Who is right, right? Who's right? Now, me personally, I have my personal thoughts, feelings, and what I believe happened, and what I know, and what I saw, and what I've experienced since that time. I can tell you exactly where I stand on that issue. But the problem is, when you're engaging with somebody that sees something completely different, you need to understand that they too are a person and they must have some reason. You should listen to that reason. Now, with more of these January 6 tapes being released, some of the elected officials that were involved in the insanity, like this Stallwell and some of the other ones have come out and they've been like, oh, you can't, these tapes don't mean nothing. They don't mean nothing, but they show people talking peacefully and many of them being guided by the Capitol Police and walking in peace and stuff like that. And like, oh, that doesn't matter. This is an armed insurrection, a violent insurrection pushed by Donald Trump. Da 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 da. Okay, I hear you. I don't agree with that at all, but I hear you. But wouldn't these tapes that are showing these people being peaceful and all of this stuff actually possibly exonerate some of the people that are still being held for the January 6th stuff? Like, you can think that it's violent and it was done by Trump and it was all of this other nonsense. Whether you're right or wrong or it's indifferent, is not the case. The case of the matter, in fact, is that we're seeing people walking and being guided by the Capitol Police very nicely, very calmly, and they look like tour groups almost, even a lot of them, you know? So can we talk about those people? Maybe they were unjustly. Maybe they shouldn't have been. I'm not talking about people that are breaking up stuff and things like that. You know, I'll give you a great example. When that whole situation with January 6th first went down, you guys know the QAnon shaman, Jacob Chansley. He's running for Senate now. I think it's Senate. Pretty sure it's Senate, which is interesting. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But I saw it and I was like, this guy, crazy horns on his head, running around with face paint, looks like a daggone it fool. And he looked like he's acting daggone it fool. But then they released some videotape of him talking with the police officers, telling people that they should remain peaceful and all of this stuff and don't destroy things and things like this. I was wrong about Jake. I was wrong about that dude. I thought he was a bad person because of the way they tried to make him in the media and the way that he was looking and stuff like that. But I was wrong. And as a grown man, I can admit when I was wrong. And I interpreted this man wrong based on the information that was given to me by the media. How much more so many others who interpreted stuff wrong? How much more so than others that didn't see the full stuff with Jacob Chansley and what actually happened? I guess you call it the chambers, right? In the chambers and stuff like that. It's very interesting. And this was before they released all of these tapes. This was like, this was like January 20 that year. So this is before they released any of all of this. And I was wrong about what I thought about that man. That man got locked up. And secondly, that dude is like a vegan, pagan, nonsense, bro. Like, that doesn't represent Republicans. Are you seriously real? Matter of fact, he's running for office right now as a libertarian. Okay, are you serious? Are you serious? That's anyway. Neither here. But I was wrong about him, and I prejudged him based on the limited amount of information he was doing. You know, and I was wrong. So how much more so are other people wrong by now with all of these other tapes getting let out? But people don't want to even consider what could actually be going on. They don't want to consider that some of these people they may have been wrong about. That some of these people that were there were good people that didn't break it, didn't care anything, didn't hit anybody, didn't do anything wrong, that were listening to the instructions given by the Capitol Police. Can we even have that conversation? Can we in America? No. Because it's either all or nothing. It's either everybody should be released or everybody's absolutely guilty. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. People that are like, oh, well, you shouldn't be releasing these videos and stuff like that. And, you know, Kevin McCarthy got on the TV and said, oh, yeah, it's good that they're releasing these videos, but you promised to release them, Kevin. You promised to release these videos, Kevin. How come you didn't release these videos, Kevin? And then you wonder why they wanted to get you out of office, Kevin. Don't get me started on Kevin. But this is what we've got going on right now. This is exactly what we're seeing right now. People in politics will say anything that they can to see where they can get something for themselves and see where they can keep themselves desperately relevant. Okay, it's crazy. They had what's his name? Bowman, the Jamal Bowman, the black dude that's in the house that pulled the fire alarm. Whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong. They just put up another video of more footage of him and the fire alarm. This dude took down the warning signs for the fire alarm, saying about the doors before he pulled the fire alarm, and then tried to play like he didn't know that the doors didn't have anything to do with the fire alarm. Man, and he used to be apparently he used to be principal at school, so he didn't say fire, but he also took down the signs. Man, listen. But it's again. Now we know better, but how many people are Democrats and hardcore Democrats even possibly that you're listening to this now? And you're like, oh, he's not guilty. He didn't do it on purpose because he said that he just thought that if he pulled the fire alarm, it would let open the door so he could get over to the other side. Well, if you pull the fire alarm, everybody from the daggone building is going to have to get evacuated. Then people are going to have to go try to figure out if there's a fire, where there's a fire, which is going to create excessive time so that you wouldn't be able to go to the place that you needed to go anyway, because now everybody's scared that it's a fire and the whole building has to be evacuated. So pulling the door thing or not would have no bearing on actually getting through that door to try to get around. This is the lies that we're sold every single day, and they play in your face. And you accept it. You should not be accepting it from these politicians and playing in your face like that. But I digress. In order to get them to stop playing in your face, you're going to have to start speaking up. But like I said earlier, and I want to reiterate this, we need to be having the important conversations with each other. We need to be more open to having these conversations with each other. We do. All this footage is coming out on January 6th, and you can't have anybody have a conversation about it because everybody's already so invested. Were you there? Were you? Why were you so invested? Why are you so heavily invested in you're so right about everything? Because it's become such a core, what would you say? A core representational factor as you as an individual, even if you had nothing to do with the whole event, that if the concept is questioned, you have to question yourself, and you don't want to do that. That's scary. That's terrifying. People, if we are to be a better country, if we are to be better as people, if we are to be able to move forward as a nation, we have to have the ability to not only talk, but also listen And more so than listen, we need to actually be able to reconcile and reconsider our specific points of view when new information comes into the cycle of thought. This is what we need to do. So the other day, I'll give you a great example. You know, the Earth's core is solid, right? No. The Earth's core is molten. No. The Earth's core is this, it's that. It's all types of different things. It's science, right? Well, here's the deal. The science changes all the time. They just did a thing on the makeup of the Earth and the I forget what you call it, but different layers of the internal part of it. Some different, but like the core and different layers. They just came up with a whole new model. Like it's completely different, like than what you taught in school. Like so, it's different, and quantum physics says that all the science and everything that you ever learned is a lie, which is a whole nother conversation. Everybody wants to have that conversation because they're like, the science is this, the science is that. But quantum physics says all of your science is a lie. It's wrong. But anyway, and we keep moving forward on that concept. You know, like we're just finding out that there's power in water and in harmonics, which cultures have known for thousands and thousands of years, and we're just figuring out that, oh, that's not pseudoscience, that's real science. I watched was it a documentary or did I read that? No, I was reading an article the other day. I think it was in Science, maybe it was Nature. Yeah, I think it was in Nature, and it was about the clothes that we wear and how they work with our electromagnetic field that we give off as individuals. That's right. You give off your own electromagnetic field. And guess what that causes? Microgravity. You yourself have gravity, which is a whole separate conversation, but boom, mind blown right there, right? But anyway, the different clothes that you wear, fabrics like polyester and rayon and non-natural things, tend to interfere with your own electromagnetic spectrum and stuff like that, and your electricity flow through your body, which they're suggesting now that you only wear natural clothing like wool or cotton and stuff like that, and you don't mix the fabrics. I said, where have I heard that before? I said, where have I heard that before? I said, oh yeah, that's in the Bible. The Bible says that. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the Torah. You know, and it's like, wow, that was like the Old Testament, right? Like we're not talking AD. We're not talking after the death of Jesus. We're talking way back. We're talking about before. Let my people go in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting that that was known all the way back then. Now we're just recovering that knowledge. But can you have a conversation about that with most people? Because if you tell them that, they're like, no, that's not real. That's not a real thing. But we know it's science is proof. You know, we didn't know why it was in the Bible before, but now we know why it was in the Bible. We know why it was a rule for life. But again, it goes back to us questioning what we be true. And can we reconcile with ourselves when presented new information, possibility that what we previously believed could possibly been inaccurate or flat out wrong? It's kind of concerning and it's scary because we saw what happened with the Wuhan flu, COVID-19, the China virus, or uh, whatever you want to call it, right? Because it's got so many different names like call it. Like you can't call it that, you can't call it this. Really? Really? Whatever. Anyway, you call it whatever. The fact of the matter is the Wuhan flu is probably the best name for it because now we know that it probably originated. We know that the World Health Organization collaborated with China on preventing the actual documents in relation to the lab leak and Wuhan from getting out in the public sphere so that they can actually view the documentation in relation to the documents and all of this and like that. And we know these things now. Now all of the scientists are like, oh yeah, it's like the lab leak theory is the most likely thing that probably happened. When for 2 years they were like, no, you're crazy. That didn't happen. It's not from there. You can't say that. Da 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 da. And now everything has changed. Now everything has changed. So are we gonna talk about that? I saw on the TV and the news the other day, and I saw on the TV and the news the other day, I saw some very, as you guys know, during COVID, they put a lot of pressure on people that didn't want to get the shots, and they ridiculed them, they barred them from being able to participate in daily life exercises like going to the store, going out to eat, actually going outside of their homes and stuff like that. And they would ridicule them and they try to lock them up or shun them into wearing a mask and stuff like that. We found out that masks don't work. That's one thing, but people still think that they do, even though the science has since the beginning of the whole thing said they don't work. Whatever, people got this warped concept in mind. That's what we're not going to talk about that. What I want to talk about is how the people that were all so gun ho about this, and the winter of suffering, despair, death, and destruction that was promised to us by with President Joe Biden and stuff never actually happened because it was all scare tactics. It was all they were misleading all of us the whole time. And this is something that we need to understand as the new facts were presented. And now we found out that they were lying about everything the whole time. Now the people that pushed so hard to fire everybody that didn't want to get those shots, especially those in the medical fields that didn't want to get those shots, and the people that were shouting at people to put on their masks and stuff like this, all of these people are like, oh, we should get amnesty. You should just forget that we ever treated you like a pile of crap, that you like you were subhuman and all of this and all of that. Word? You just want people to forget they treated you like you were a sub. Wow, that's it's amazing. People want to be forgiven, and they want to be. Let me rephrase that. They don't given. They want to be held faultless. They want to be held blameless. They don't want to accept any responsibility for the actions that they have. Now that they got new information, it shows that they were wrong from the beginning, from the get go, and they don't want to talk about it anymore because they just want to cop it out. They want to make it like it wasn't an issue. But it was an issue. It happened. So many families were destroyed and broken up because people lost their jobs and their livelihoods, and so many people with mental health issues now because of all of the what do you call it, the seclusion and isolation during COVID, because of all of these procedures and stuff that were implemented that should have never been implemented. None of them that even went with the science that was the science at the time. And now we're supposed to forgive everybody of that? Just like, oh no, it's water under the bridge. Wow. Wow. Wow, I say. And with that, I'd like to say if people that were so gun ho about all of that were to actually be able to have honest conversations with other people in which they had to possibly rethink what they believed and what they held as true, maybe, just maybe, just maybe, we could actually start towards a better place in society with people listening to each other and hearing where other people are coming from and why they believe what they believe. You don't have to believe what somebody else believes. And for me, it boils down to the Constitution because I'm a constitutionalist. Okay, is it against the Constitution, specifically the Bill of Rights? It is. Okay, then we're not doing that. Is it in favor of giving the government more power and more consolidation of power? Then we're not doing that. Then when the government wants more money, nope, we're not doing that. The government wants to take your weapons, so that our government, which we know blows up men, women, and children and destroys rainforests and stuff like that, those are the people that we want with the guns. The country that built how much sarin gas, that built how much biological weapons, that had biological weapons research laboratories in Ukraine, which we can't talk about those, and they admitted that they had those. See, but you can't talk about those, but they admitted that they existed on the TV. It was admitted. You can go look it up. Okay, but we can't talk about that either. And this is the problem. We need to be able to have these conversations as But right now, we can't because people are so caught up in their own selves and refuse to let it go. People need to be more like, well, remember that we're all part of the same tribe, right? We might have our own individual families or something, but we're all part of the same tribe. We're all part of this tribe called America. And there are those of us inside our own country that would seek to pull us apart and separate us so that we are a weak house and that we are not able to stand together. They don't want us to stand together. They want us to stay divided. And I want you guys all to unite and stand up because I know that the government does not have our best interests in hand. And I know that the only way for us to get the government to actually do what we need them to do and to stand up the way that we need them to stand up for us and for what we want is to start to unite together and work together. Okay? Because at the end of the day, the government doesn't care about anything. It cares about itself, staying in power, and empowering the elites who actually run the government. We deserve better. We all deserve better. And we can get better too. But it's going to take us to stand up and action. Are you ready to stand up and take action? Are you ready to do just a little bit? Are you ready to get off line? Stop pitching a fit online? Are you ready to stop getting upset around the dinner table? Are you ready to actually engage with your elected officials? Are you ready to get your friends and loved ones together to actually start to hold the elected officials accountable? I hope so. We're going into this new year. It's going to be a great new year. It's going to be a great, fantastic new year, better than the last year, because I'm going to do everything that I can in my power to make sure that it is, and I hope that you do too. And if we all do that lift, it'll make the lift a lot lighter. We can do this, but it's going to be together. We have to unite, no more division on the important things, and we have to realize who the real people that want to see harm done to America are. It's the people in power. It's the elites. It's the corporatists. It's many of the corporatists. Like, it's not all of them, right? But it's the elites, the socioeconomically elite. It's the corporate elites. It's the extremely wealthy. It's all of them. All of them. It's not one of them. It's all of them. Because they're looking out for their best interests, which I guess you could argue that it doesn't even make them a bad person as an individual since it's only selfish. But the problem is it's only self-interest. It's only solely self-interest. And we, you, I, me, all of us together have to have the best interests of the country at heart. And we have to push for that, guys. So with that, I just want to make sure that I encourage you to think outside your box, to listen to what somebody else has to say. I'm not saying that you have to agree, but listen to them anyway. At least get to know where they're coming from better. And that's going to be the way that we start to rebuild unity in our country, because we need that. Not only do we need unity in our country, we need community. And we need that in our neighborhoods. We got to put the unity back in community. But that only comes when you start to come together. And with that, I'll catch you guys later. You be blessed, be well, stand up, speak up, and don't shut up. Take action. Thank you for listening to The Divide today on WRFZ 106.3 FM, Rochester Free Radio. Thank you guys. I'll catch you guys later. You be blessed and be well. Hello, good brother. How was your day?
Beautiful day outside, great fall weather. Don't have fall, autumn.
Autumn, yes.